Except for what? Except for one rule. Does anyone know what that rule is? So if we have a linear inequality, you can solve it just like a linear equation. I'll do some examples, but there's one more rule that we need to know. It has to do with negatives. No one remembers? The rule is if you multiply or divide by a negative number, that's a number, you must switch the inequality sign. You guys remember that? Or coming back to you now? Okay. So this is really the one thing we need to know about solving linear inequalities. And I'm just going to start doing some out of the book. All those techniques that we have for clearing fractions, clearing decimals, those all come into play here as well. We can use those just like everything else. And then once we solve the inequality, notice that once we solve the inequality, we will have x is less than, some number here. Okay? So the solution, it will be that interval notation. Okay, so the solution will be in interval notation. And I'll show you an example. Let's start with an easy one. X plus 4 is less than 5. So how do I want to, just like equations, I want to isolate my x. What do I want to do? Subtract 4 from both sides. Now is that going to change my inequality sign? No, because I'm not multiplying or dividing. So this is x is less than 5 minus 4 is 1. Okay, so x is less than 1. If you want to graph it, so x is less than 1. So does it include the 1? No. So it's open and it's less than, so it goes that direction. The interval notation is negative infinity to 1 open. One thing that you might see is that you might see this symbol. X is less than 1, but then this little backwards looking E thing, okay, that means element of. So this says x is an element of this interval. So x is somewhere inside of there. It can be any number inside of there. It will work. Any questions? Let's look at another example. (5x) plus 6 plus 2x is greater than or equal to 2 minus x plus 4. Everyone try to solve that. Let's see. No, I don't think it's no solution. Let's see. 7x plus 6, just combining like terms on my left, greater than or equal to 2 plus 4 is 6 minus x. I'm going to add x, so I have 8x plus 6 is greater than or equal to 6. 8x, I'm subtracting 6, is greater than or equal to 0. And then I want to divide by 8. Right? I want to divide by 8 to cancel this out here. And what do I get on the right-hand side? X is greater than or equal to, now what's 0 divided by 8? Just 0. So x is bigger than or equal to 0. Including the 0, bigger than or equal to. So you could say x is an element of 0, comma infinity, open. What I'm going to be asking for is probably a graph and this interval notation. I'm not worried about the x backwards e element of. But I'm going to be looking for this, and this. Yep. If you divide by a negative number, but I divided, that's a great question. I divided by a positive. Great question, yep. Yeah, I'll tell you, if I want the graph, I'll ask for the graph. If I don't say graph it, then I'm looking for these two. I'll be pretty specific about write your answer in interval notation. Good questions. Anything else? Let's see. Let's do a few more. I want to practice a couple of things. Let's see. 5 over 16 times x plus 1 is greater than or equal to 1 over 4 times x minus 3. Okay, this is starting to look like one of the equations that was on your last test. Okay. So what's the strategy for clearing fractions? We can still use the same technique of clearing fractions for inequalities. We want to multiply by not the least common denominator, but the least common multiple. Okay, so what's the smallest number that is a multiple of 16 and also a multiple of 4? 16. So I'm going to multiply the entire equation, or the inequality in this case, by 16. 1 over 4 x minus 3. Okay, so you think about it as distributing, again, so 16 on the left-hand side, 5 over 16 times x plus 1. 16 times everything on the left. Now, is this a positive or negative? So does it change the inequality sign? No. So I still have greater than or equal to. And then I'm multiplying everything on the right-hand side by a 16 as well. Now what happens when I multiply 16 times a 5 over 16? What's that? Yeah, the 16s cancel. And what do I have left? 5, and then I still have the x plus 1. And greater than or equal to. Now what about here? 4 will go into 16 how many times? 4. So then I have 4 on top, so 4 times x minus 3. So everyone try to solve this now. We want to get x is greater than or equal to a negative 17. Okay, so draw the graph. So you don't have to always draw a graph to scale. You don't have to include the 0 or even any positive number. So I can just pick any point on the graph, label that a negative 17. It's going to be greater than or equal to, so it includes, and it's this direction, right? And what's the interval? Any questions? So this is an example of solving a linear inequality using the technique of clearing fractions by multiplying by the least common multiple. Okay?